She hung from the cottonwood tree in the freezing December darkness, rope cutting into her wrists, shoulders screaming. 3 hours tied there, left to die. Then hoofbeats, a single rider moving slow through the snow. Grace's voice cracked with desperation. "Please, help me." The man dismounted, tall, broad shoulders. Moonlight caught his face as he pulled a knife from his belt. The blade flicked open. Grace's heart stopped. Was this rescue or execution? His voice came soft, steady. "Ma'am, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to cut you down." But to understand how Grace Miller ended up tied to that tree left for dead in the Wyoming wilderness, we need to go back 3 hours earlier, to a town hall, to a trial, to the 3 strikes of a gavel that destroyed everything. The gavel came down 3 times. That was all it took to destroy Grace Miller's life. The sound echoed through the town hall of Silver Point, Wyoming territory on a cold December afternoon in 1882. Outside, snow fell in thick white curtains covering the dirt streets and wooden boardwalks. Inside, 50 people packed the benches, their breath visible in the winter air, their faces hard with anger, and something darker, something that looked like hunger. Grace stood before the council table with her hands folded at her waist, her back straight, her chin level. She wore a plain black dress, the mourning clothes she'd worn for 2 years since her husband Harrison died in the mining accident. The fabric was worn, but clean patched at the elbows, but pressed. Her auburn hair was pulled back tight under a simple bonnet. Her green eyes, red from 3 days without sleep, stayed fixed on the 5 men who sat in judgment. Clayton Hartwell stood at the head of the table. He was 55 years old, broad across the shoulders, his face flushed red from grief or rage or both. His black suit was expensive, tailored in Denver. His watch chain was solid gold. Everything about him said money and power, everything except his eyes, which were hollow and broken. Next to him sat the mayor, a thin, nervous man named Peterson, who kept adjusting his spectacles. Then Sheriff Henry Cooper, 40 years old, with tired eyes and a badge that weighed heavier each year. The town merchant, old Mr. Daniels. And at the far end, looking anywhere but at Grace, Dr. Samuel Brooks. The doctor's hands shook. He was 58 years old, gray-bearded with the red nose and rheumy eyes of a man who drank more than he should. His fingers drummed against the table in a rhythm only he could hear. He would not meet Grace's gaze. Behind Grace, in the 3rd row of benches, sat a man and a boy. The man was tall, weathered, maybe 42 years old, with brown hair going gray at the temples. His face was lined from years of sun and wind. His hands were calloused, his clothes practical. Working clothes, ranch clothes. His name was Ethan Blackwood, and he owned 500 acres of grazing land 10 miles north of town. The boy beside him was 9 years old, small for his age, serious-faced. Samuel Blackwood. His mother had died 4 years ago. He sat very still, watching the woman at the front of the room with curiosity rather than hatred. Clayton Hartwell's voice cracked like a whip. "This woman." He pointed at Grace, his hand trembling. "This widow. She used her devil knowledge to murder my son." The crowd murmured agreement. Someone in the back shouted, "Witch." Someone else made a sign against evil. Grace's voice came steady and clear. "I treated William Hartwell for typhoid fever. I did everything medically possible to save his life. His death was not murder, it was tragedy." "You were there when he died." Clayton's voice rose higher. "The other boy lived. My son died. Explain that." "I can explain it," Grace said quietly, "if you would listen." "The council has heard enough explanations." This was the mayor speaking quickly, eager to be done with this. "Dr. Brooks, the council calls on your expertise." Dr. Brooks stood slowly. He swayed slightly, caught himself on the edge of the table. When he spoke, his words came too fast, tumbling over each other. "I cannot explain why one boy lived and another died. Miss Miller's methods are, shall we say, unconventional. She uses techniques not taught in proper medical schools, herbalism, folk remedies, things that in less enlightened times might have been called witchcraft." Grace turned to face him directly. Her voice stayed calm, but something in it cut like a blade. "Doctor, tell them the truth. You know what happened that night?" Brooks looked at the ceiling, at the floor, at his shaking hands, anywhere but at her. "I have nothing more to say." He walked out. The door closed behind him with a sound like a coffin lid. Clayton moved to vote immediately. His face was pale now, sweating despite the cold. "I move that Grace Miller be expelled from Silver Point immediately. She is to leave town within 24 hours. If she is found here after sunrise tomorrow, she will be arrested for practicing witchcraft." "Seconded," said the mayor. Sheriff Cooper opened his mouth as if to object, then closed it. Clayton Hartwell held the mortgage on Cooper's house. Clayton Hartwell owned the bank. Clayton Hartwell owned half the businesses in Silver Point and had money in the rest. The vote was 5-0. Grace stood silent as the verdict fell. She did not cry. She did not beg. She stood with her back straight and her head high, and when the last man voted, she spoke one final time. "I will leave, but you are condemning an innocent woman, and someday the truth will come out. When it does, I hope you can live with what you've done." She turned and walked down the center aisle. The crowd pulled back from her as if she carried plague. She passed within 3 feet of Ethan Blackwood and his son. The boy whispered something to his father. "Papa, she doesn't look like a witch." Ethan's voice came low and quiet. "Sometimes people need someone to blame, son. But Mama always said blaming the wrong person is the same as lying." Ethan looked at his boy, then at the woman walking toward the door. Something in his chest, something that had been frozen for 4 years, shifted just slightly. "Your mama was right." Grace walked out into the snow. The door closed. The crowd began to disperse, talking in low, excited voices. They had their verdict. They had their witch. They could go home satisfied that justice had been served. Only a few of them would remember in the days to come that justice and revenge are not the same thing. 2 weeks earlier, on the first day of December, William Hartwell had fallen ill with typhoid fever. He was 19 years old, his father's only son, Clayton's whole world since his mother died in childbirth. William worked at his father's mining company, learning the business, preparing to take over someday. The fever came on fast, chills, headache, weakness. Dr. Brooks was called. He prescribed mercury, the standard treatment, but Dr. Brooks had been drinking since breakfast, and his hands shook as he measured the dose. 25 grains instead of 10. By the time Grace arrived to help with nursing, the damage was done. She saw it immediately. The amount of mercury, the color of William's skin. She tried to warn the doctor. He waved her away. At the same time, in a small house on the edge of town, another boy lay sick with the same fever. Henry Parker, age 10, son of Reverend Samuel Parker. Grace went there next. She stayed 9 days and 9 nights barely sleeping, keeping the boy cool, keeping him hydrated, monitoring every symptom. Henry Parker survived. William Hartwell died, and Clayton, mad with grief, needed someone to blame. Dr. Brooks, afraid of losing his license, afraid of admitting his mistake, gave him a target. The widow, the outsider, the woman with medical knowledge she shouldn't have, the woman who was there when his son died. It was easier to call her witch than to admit the truth, that sometimes good people die from simple human error, that tragedy has no meaning, no purpose, no one to punish, that the universe does not care about justice. So they made her the villain. And Clayton could focus his rage on something he could see, something he could fight, something he could destroy. It was easier that way, easier than grief, easier than acceptance, easier than the truth. Grace walked down Main Street as the sun set behind the mountains. The snow fell heavier now, muffling sound, turning the world white and quiet. She carried a single small bag that held everything she owned, a change of clothes. Her medical kit, worn leather, the tools inside inherited from her father, a surgeon in Boston who had taught her everything before he died. A photograph of her husband taken on their wedding day. A book of pressed flowers her mother had made. That was all. 2 years ago she'd had a home, a husband, a future. Then Harrison went into the mine one day and didn't come out the same. The accident broke his back. He lived 2 more years in pain before the pneumonia took him. Grace nursed him until the end. She knew how to ease suffering. She knew which herbs helped with pain, which roots brought fever down, which teas helped sleep come. After Harrison died, she'd stayed in Silver Point because she had nowhere else to go. She took work as a nurse, helping Dr. Brooks, helping anyone who needed her. The pay was poor, but it kept her fed. She lived in a single room above the general store. She kept to herself. She didn't cause trouble. Until William Hartwell died. Now the general store owner stood in his doorway, arms crossed, watching her pass. He did not speak, did not nod, just watched. Grace tried the mercantile next. She needed supplies for the journey, food, a warm blanket. The owner, a thin woman named Martha, shook her head before Grace could even ask. "Can't sell to you. Council's orders." "I have money." "Don't matter. Can't sell to you." Grace turned away. She tried the livery stable next. She needed a horse. She had enough money for a rental barely. The stable owner, a big German man named Klaus, wouldn't even let her in the door. "No horses for witches." "I'm not a witch. I'm a nurse. Council says different." She walked on. The church stood at the end of Main Street, white-painted steeple reaching up into the falling snow. As Grace passed, women pulled their children away from her. Someone spat on the ground, not at her, just near her, close enough to make the message clear. Mrs. Catherine Walsh stepped out from the church. She was 60 years old, bone-thin, with eyes like a hawk. She led the ladies' auxiliary. She decided who was welcome in Silver Point and who was not. She wore black silk despite the cold, and her voice carried across the street. "Look at her, walking among decent folk like she has a right." Grace stopped. She turned. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. "Mrs. Walsh, I have done nothing wrong. I tried to save William Hartwell. I tried to warn Dr. Brooks that the dosage was too high. He didn't listen." Catherine's face flushed red. "Liar. You cursed him because the Hartwells have money and you're just a poor widow." "I am poor, that's true, but my poverty doesn't make me evil, and your wealth doesn't make you right." The watching crowd gasped. No one spoke to Catherine Walsh that way. "How dare you address me in such a manner?" Grace's green eyes stayed level. "I dare because I know the truth, and someday you will too." She turned and walked away, leaving Catherine sputtering behind her. Several men stepped forward as if to stop Grace, but something in her bearing and the way she carried herself and the quiet dignity of her walk made them hesitate. She was not running, she was not crying, she was simply leaving as ordered with her head held high. Across the street, standing in the shadow of the feed store, Ethan Blackwood watched. His son Samuel stood beside him, small hand clutching his father's coat. "Papa, why are they so mean to her?" Ethan's voice came quiet. "Sometimes people need someone to blame, son. When something bad happens and they can't fix it, they look for someone to punish. Makes them feel like they have control. But Mama always said blaming the wrong person is the same as lying. Your Mama was a wise woman. Is Miss Miller lying?" Ethan watched Grace disappear into the gathering dusk, a lone figure in black against the white snow. "No, son, I don't think she is." Samuel looked up at his father, studying his face in that way children do when they're trying to understand adult things. "Then why doesn't someone help her?" Ethan didn't answer. He didn't have a good answer. He turned away, took Samuel's hand, and walked toward their wagon. They had a 10-mile ride back to the ranch before full dark. But the question stayed with him. Why doesn't someone help her? Grace walked until the town disappeared behind her. The road stretched ahead, white and empty, leading north toward Brighton, the next settlement, 30 miles away. She had no horse, no food, only the clothes on her back and the small bag in her hand. She kept walking. What else could she do? Stop meant freezing. Return meant arrest. Forward was the only direction left. The temperature dropped as night fell. December in Wyoming Territory is not forgiving. 20 degrees during the day, 10 at night, sometimes lower. Grace's thin coat was meant for indoor work, not wilderness travel. Her boots were worn through at the sole. But she walked because walking was all she had. She made it 3 miles before the trouble found her. The sound came first. Hoofbeats. 3 horses moving fast coming from behind. Grace stepped off the road into the shadows of the pine trees that lined the trail. She pressed her back against rough bark and waited. 3 riders came around the bend, ranch hands from their clothes, working men. They rode past her hiding spot, then stopped, circled back. They knew she was there. The lead rider was a big man, maybe 30 years old, with a scar across his jaw. His name was Jake. The others were Pete and Randy, younger, meaner. Jake called out, "Well, well, which going somewhere?" Grace stepped out from the trees. No point hiding now. "I'm leaving as ordered. Let me pass." Pete laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "See, thing is, we don't think 24 hours is enough. Boss wants you gone now." "I'm walking as fast as I can." Randy dismounted. He was the youngest, barely 20, with cold eyes and a cruel mouth. "Maybe you need some encouragement." Grace's hand moved to her medical bag. Inside, wrapped in cloth, was a scalpel. Her father's scalpel, razor sharp, the blade 5 inches long. "Don't come closer." Jake laughed again. "What you gonna do?" "Curse us." Grace pulled out the scalpel. The steel caught the moonlight. "I'm a surgeon's daughter. I know where every major artery is in the human body. The femoral artery in your leg, the carotid in your neck, the brachial in your arm. Test me if you want. But the first man who touches me will bleed out before his friends can get him back to town." The 3 men looked at each other. She was serious. They could see it in her eyes. This was not a bluff. But they were 3, and she was 1. And their boss had paid them well to make sure the witch never came back. Jake nodded to the others. They spread out, circling her. Grace backed toward a tree, scalpel raised, but there was nowhere to run. When Jake lunged, she slashed at him. The blade cut across his arm, shallow but painful. He swore and grabbed her wrist. The scalpel fell. Pete caught her other arm. Randy came from behind. She fought, kicked, screamed, connected once, her boot catching Randy in the shin, making him howl. But 3 grown men against 1 woman was no contest. They dragged her to a cottonwood tree 30 feet from the road. Old tree, twisted, bare branches reaching up like skeleton fingers. Pete had rope on his saddle. Ranch rope, good hemp, strong. Grace's heart hammered. This was not exile. This was execution. "What are you doing?" Clayton said, to scare me. "Not kill me." Jake tied her hands together, pulled them up over her head, looped the rope over a low branch. He pulled until she was stretched, arms burning, feet barely touching ground. "Boss said make sure you don't come back. This'll do it. Cold'll finish you by morning. Natural causes. Real sad." Pete was already mounting his horse. "Someone'll find you. Maybe. If you're lucky." Randy spat at her feet. "Or maybe the wolves will find you first." They rode away laughing. The sound faded. Grace was alone. She hung from the tree as the temperature dropped and the snow fell harder. Her shoulders screamed. Her hands went numb. She tried to work the rope loose with her teeth, but the knots were professional, tight, impossible. After an hour, she started to cry. Not from pain, from rage, from the injustice of it all. She had tried to help William Hartwell. She had done nothing wrong, and this was her reward. Death by exposure alone in the wilderness, blamed for a crime she didn't commit. After 2 hours, the crying stopped. Anger replaced it. If she was going to die, she would die fighting. She worked at the ropes with her teeth again, ignoring the pain, ignoring the cold. Blood from her lips made the rope slippery. She kept working. After 3 hours, she heard hoofbeats again. Her body went rigid. The men coming back to finish it, or someone else, help or harm. She couldn't tell in the dark. A single horse this time, moving slow, careful. The rider stopped when he saw her. Grace's voice came out cracked, desperate. "Please, help me." The rider dismounted. Tall, broad shoulders. He came closer. Moonlight caught his face. Ethan Blackwood. Relief flooded through her, then fear. What if he was here to finish the job? What if Clayton had sent him, "Please don't hurt me"? Ethan's voice came soft, steady. "Ma'am, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to cut you down." He pulled a knife from his belt. Case-folding knife bone handle. The blade flicked open. Grace's exhausted mind jumped to conclusions. The knife. He was one of them. He was going to kill her. No, please. Easy now, easy. Look at me. She looked. His eyes were blue, clear, honest. No hatred there, no cruelty, just concern. My name is Ethan Blackwood. I own a ranch 10 miles north. I'm not part of any of this. I saw what happened in town today. It was wrong. I'm going to cut you loose. Trust me. Grace's voice broke. Why? Because it's right. He reached up and cut the rope above her hands. She fell. He caught her before she hit the ground. His arms were strong, steady. He lowered her gently, supporting her weight while the blood rushed back into her arms. The pain was excruciating. She gasped but didn't scream. Ethan worked on the knots around her wrists. The rope had cut deep. Her hands were purple, swollen. He worked carefully, patiently, until the rope fell away. Can you stand? Grace tried. Her legs buckled. He caught her again. I got you. She looked up at him, this stranger who had saved her life. This man who had nothing to gain and everything to lose by helping her. Why are you helping me? Ethan's face was shadowed, but she could hear the pain in his voice. Because my son asked me today why people were being mean to you, and I didn't have a good answer. Because my wife, before she died, made me promise to teach our boy to be brave, to do right even when it's hard. Because leaving you here to freeze would make me the same as the men who tied you to this tree. And I'm not that man anymore. Anymore. Long story. For another time. Right now, we need to get you warm. Can you ride? I think so. He helped her onto his horse, a big sorrel gelding. Then he swung up behind her. His coat was sheepskin warm. He wrapped it around both of them. Where are we going? My ranch. It's the only place for 50 miles where you'll be safe. They'll come after you. Clayton will make you an enemy. Let him try. Why would you risk that? Ethan was quiet for a moment. The horse started walking, following the road north by instinct. 4 years ago, my wife died of smallpox. Our son Samuel was only 5. I wanted to die too. Thought about it every day for a year. Thought about just riding out into the mountains and not coming back. But I couldn't. Because of Samuel. He needed me. So I kept going. Kept working. Kept living even though I didn't want to. And you know what I learned? What? That sometimes staying alive when you want to die is the bravest thing you can do. Sometimes helping someone when it costs you everything is the only thing that makes life worth living. You didn't give up back there. You fought. Even tied to that tree you kept fighting. That's worth saving. You're worth saving. Grace started crying again, but different tears now. Not despair. Relief. Gratitude. For the first time since William Hartwell died, someone believed her. Someone saw her as human, not monster. Someone cared. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. We got a long ride ahead and a lot of trouble coming, but we'll face it, together. The ride back to Blackwood Ranch took 2 hours. Grace drifted in and out of consciousness, hypothermia taking its toll. Ethan kept her wrapped in his coat, kept her upright, kept her warm with his body heat. He talked to her, keeping her awake, telling her about his ranch, about Samuel, about anything to keep her mind working. We run 200 head of cattle, good stock, Herefords mostly, got 5 hands who work for me, good men. They'll be surprised to see you, but they'll mind their manners or answer to me. We got a house, not fancy but solid, built it myself when I married Sarah. 2 bedrooms upstairs, kitchen and living room downstairs. Samuel sleeps upstairs. I mostly sleep in the barn these days. Why the barn? Can't sleep in the bed Sarah died in. Tried for a year. Couldn't do it. Moved to the barn. Samuel understands. He's a good boy. Smart. Serious. Too serious for 9 years old. Lost his mother too young, but he's strong, like his mama was. What was she like? Ethan's voice softened with memory. Sarah was well, she was the best thing that ever happened to me. Strong. Stubborn. Could outwork any man on the ranch when she set her mind to it. She had this laugh that, God, you could hear it across the valley. Made everything better. Samuel has her laugh. Every time I hear it, I see her again. I'm sorry you lost her. I'm sorry you lost your husband. Charlie, my foreman, he said you're a widow too. 2 years. Harrison worked in the mines. Accident broke his back. He lived 2 more years, but he wasn't ever the same. The pain was too much. When the pneumonia came, I think part of him was relieved. You nursed him. Until the end. Then you know what it's like to watch someone you love die slow, to be helpless, to wish you could take their place. Yes. They rode in silence after that, a silence born of shared understanding. Both of them knew loss. Both of them knew grief. Both of them knew what it meant to keep living when part of you died. Blackwood Ranch appeared as the moon rose high. Modest buildings well maintained. The main house 2-story painted white front porch with rocking chairs. Barn big and sturdy, fresh hay smell carrying on the wind. Corral with horses' dark shapes moving in the moonlight. Bunkhouse for the hands. Chicken coop. Vegetable garden dormant now under snow. 200 head of cattle scattered across 500 acres of grazing land. It wasn't fancy, but it was honest, built with work maintained with pride. An old man sat on the porch smoking a pipe. He stood when he saw them coming, walked down the steps, squinting in the dark. "Boss, that you?" "It's me, Charlie." The old man came closer, saw Grace. "Boss, that's the woman from town, the one they exiled, the one they called witch." "I know who she is. Clayton Hartwell ain't gonna like this." Ethan dismounted, then reached up and lifted Grace down. She could barely stand. He supported her weight easily. "Clayton Hartwell can go to hell. She was tied to a tree, Charlie, left to freeze to death. What was I supposed to do?" Charlie studied Ethan's face for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Sarah would have done the same. I'll get blankets and hot water." "Thank you." Ethan carried Grace inside. The house was dark, quiet. A single lamp burned in the living room. The furniture was simple but comfortable. Couch, 2 chairs, fireplace with embers still glowing. Stairs leading up to bedrooms. Ethan laid Grace on the couch, built up the fire, wrapped her in blankets. Charlie brought hot water, clean cloths. Between them they cleaned the rope burns on her wrists, checked for frostbite, got her warm. Grace's eyes kept closing. "Stay awake a little longer. Need to make sure you're warm all the way through." "So tired." "I know. Soon. Charlie gets some of that chicken soup from yesterday. She needs something warm in her stomach." Charlie disappeared into the kitchen. Ethan sat on the floor next to the couch, watching Grace's color slowly return. When Charlie came back with soup, Ethan held the bowl while Grace sipped. She managed half of it before exhaustion won. "Can't stay awake." "All right. Sleep now. You're safe here." As Grace's eyes closed, she whispered one more time, "Why did you save me?" Ethan's answer came soft, almost too quiet to hear. "Because 4 years ago someone should have saved Sarah, and no one did. Maybe I can't change the past, but I can change right now. Sleep, Miss Miller. Tomorrow we'll figure out what comes next." Grace slept. Ethan sat watch until the fire burned low and the night grew cold. Then he stood, added more wood to the fireplace, checked that Grace was warm, and went out to the barn where he'd been sleeping for 4 years. As dawn broke over Blackwood Ranch on December 16, 1882, Ethan Blackwood made a decision that would change 3 lives forever. The widow would stay. He didn't know for how long. He didn't know what trouble it would bring. But he knew it was right. And for the first time in 4 years, doing what was right felt more important than staying safe. Samuel Blackwood woke at dawn as he always did. His small room on the 2nd floor was cold in December, but he was used to that. He dressed quickly, pulling on wool pants and a flannel shirt socks with holes at the toes that he kept meaning to ask his father about, but never did. There was no one to mend them anymore, not since Mama died. He came down the stairs quietly, careful not to wake his father. Except his father wasn't in his room. Papa never slept in that room anymore. He slept in the barn with the horses and the hay and the smell of leather and grain. Samuel understood why, even if he couldn't put it into words. The bedroom was where Mama had died. Some ghosts are harder to live with than others. Samuel reached the bottom step and stopped. There was a woman on the couch. She lay wrapped in blankets, her auburn hair loose around her face, her breathing deep and even. Samuel recognized her immediately. The woman from town, the one they had called Witch, the one his father had watched as the crowd turned cruel. Samuel wasn't frightened. He was curious. He walked closer, studying her face. She didn't look like a witch. She looked tired, sad. There were bandages on her wrists, white cloth wrapped tight. Her hands lay outside the blanket, and Samuel could see they were workers' hands, rough, calloused, like his father's hands, like Charlie's hands, like the hands of people who knew what labor meant. The front door opened. Ethan came in from the barn carrying an armload of firewood. He saw Samuel standing by the couch and froze. "Samuel." "Good morning, Papa." Ethan set the wood down carefully, moved to his son, knelt to his level. He smelled like hay and cold air and horse. "Son, I need to explain something. That's Miss Miller, from town. You remember her?" "I remember. The council made her leave. Mrs. Walsh called her bad names. You asked me yesterday why people were mean to her." Ethan nodded slowly. His boy was smart, too smart sometimes. It made lying impossible, which was probably for the best. "Last night riding home I found her. She was hurt. Someone had tied her to a tree and left her. I couldn't just ride past, so I brought her here." Samuel looked at the sleeping woman, then back at his father. "Is she staying?" "For now, until she heals, until it's safe for her to travel." "The town said she's a witch. Is she?" "No, she's a nurse. People accused her of something she didn't do." Samuel considered this. His face was serious, thoughtful, older than his 9 years. "Like when Tommy Brewster said I stole his marble, but I didn't. I found it by the creek and gave it back, but he said I stole it first." Exactly like that. Sometimes people make mistakes about who did what. Sometimes they blame the wrong person because the truth is too hard. "So we're helping her. We're helping her." Samuel nodded once decision made. He walked to the couch, picked up the quilt that had fallen off one corner, and tucked it back around the sleeping woman's feet. Careful, gentle, the way his mother had taught him to be gentle with hurt things. "Mama would want us to." Ethan's voice caught. Sarah's kindness living on in their son. It was the best part of her, the part that hadn't died with her body. Yes, she would. Samuel looked up at his father with those serious eyes. "Then it's good we did." Grace woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. For a moment she didn't know where she was. Not her room above the general store. Not the cold ground by the cottonwood tree. Somewhere warm. Somewhere safe. Memory returned. The tree. The rope. The man on the horse. Ethan Blackwood. The ranch. She sat up slowly. Her wrists ached. Her shoulders screamed protest from being stretched for so long. But she was alive, warm, safe. Voices came from the kitchen, a man and a boy. She could hear them talking low, the clink of plates, the sizzle of something cooking. Her stomach cramped with hunger. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten. She stood, wrapped the blanket around her shoulders, and walked toward the kitchen. Her legs were unsteady but held. Ethan stood at the stove, flipping bacon in a cast-iron skillet. Samuel sat at the table setting out plates and forks. They both looked up when she appeared in the doorway. "Miss Miller." Ethan's voice was careful, respectful. "You should be resting." "I've rested enough. I should help." "You should sit. You nearly froze to death last night." Grace's pride wanted to argue, but her body had other ideas. She swayed, caught herself on the doorframe. Ethan moved fast, caught her elbow, guided her to a chair. "Easy now. Charlie said you might be dizzy for a while. Hypothermia does that." Samuel pushed a cup of water toward her. "Papa says you're a nurse." Grace looked at the boy. He had his father's honest eyes, his father's serious expression. But there was something else there, too. A loneliness. A careful watching, as if he was used to being disappointed by adults. "I am. Or I was." "What's the difference?" "I was a nurse in town. Now I'm not sure what I am." Samuel considered this with the gravity of a judge. "Papa says you're our guest. Guests don't have to be anything except themselves. Grace felt a weight lift from her shoulders. This child, this serious-faced boy, was offering her something the adults in Silver Point had refused: simple human acceptance. "Thank you. That's kind of you to say. Mama used to say kindness doesn't cost anything, so we should spend it freely." Grace's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back. "Your mama sounds like she was a wise woman." "She was the best mama in the world." Samuel said it simply as fact, without sadness. "She died when I was 5. Smallpox. The doctor couldn't help her." "I'm sorry. I lost my mother too when I was young. It's hard." "Do you still think about her?" "Every day." Samuel nodded, satisfied. They understood each other. Ethan brought plates to the table. Bacon, eggs, biscuits left over from 2 days ago. Simple food, but hot and plentiful. Grace's stomach growled. She couldn't remember the last time she'd felt hunger instead of just emptiness. They ate in silence for a while. Grace forced herself to eat slowly, though she wanted to devour everything. She was aware of both of them watching her, and she kept her manners, kept her dignity. No matter how desperate she would not wolf her food like an animal. Ethan spoke first. "Miss Miller, I need to be straight with you. You can't go back to Silver Point. The council exiled you. If you show your face there, they'll arrest you." "I know. And you can't walk to Brighton. 30 miles in winter, no supplies, no horse. You wouldn't make it." "I know that too. So I'm offering you something. You can stay here, on the ranch, temporarily. Until spring maybe, when the weather's better for travel." Grace set down her fork, met his eyes directly. "Mr. Blackwood helping me will make you an enemy of Clayton Hartwell. He owns half the businesses in Silver Point. He controls the cattle buyers, the merchants, the bank. If word gets out that you're sheltering me, he'll make your life hell. Let him try. I'm serious. He's a powerful man. And I'm a man who doesn't abandon people in need. Clayton Hartwell doesn't scare me." Grace studied his face. He meant it. There was no bravado there, no false courage, just quiet certainty. This was a man who had made his decision and would stand by it. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan glanced at Samuel, then back to Grace. "Because I want my son to grow up seeing men do the right thing, even when it's hard, even when it costs something. The world's got enough cowards. I don't want to be one of them." Grace felt the tears coming again. She fought them. She would not cry. She would not be weak. But God, it had been so long since anyone had been kind to her. "If I stay, I work. I'm not a charity case. I earn my keep." "Fair enough. We could use help with cooking, cleaning, mending. Charlie does his best, but he's a ranch hand, not a housekeeper. And if anyone gets hurt, having a nurse around might save a trip to town." "I can do all of that." "Then we have an arrangement. Room and board in exchange for work. You stay as long as you need. When you're ready to move on, I'll get you a horse and supplies. Deal." Grace extended her bandaged hand. Ethan shook it carefully, mindful of her injuries. "Deal." Samuel clapped his hands, once pleased. "Good. Now you can fix Papa's shirts. They all have holes." Ethan's face reddened slightly. "Samuel, what they do, and your socks, and that quilt in the barn, and—" "That's enough, son." Grace smiled, the first real smile in weeks. "I can mend shirts, and socks, and quilts. See, Papa? She's useful already." The morning passed in small tasks. Grace explored the house while Ethan and Samuel went out to handle morning chores. The house was clean, but obviously maintained by men who didn't know or care about details. Dishes washed, but not put away properly. Floors swept, but corners missed. Laundry done, but not folded. Grace found herself automatically tidying as she went, straightening the books on the shelf by the fireplace, organizing the kitchen pantry, folding the blankets on the couch where she'd slept. She found Samuel's room upstairs, small, neat, almost obsessively organized. The bed made with military precision, clothes hung or folded, books arranged by size, a child trying to control what little he could control in a world that had taken his mother away. The other bedroom she didn't enter. The door was closed. She could see dust in the crack beneath. That room belonged to ghosts, she understood. Some doors should stay closed. Charlie came in at midday, a weathered man of 60 with a face like old leather and kind eyes. He looked at Grace for a long moment, then nodded as if making a decision. "Miss Miller, name's Charlie Dawson. Been working for Ethan since before Samuel was born. Knew his wife Sarah. Good woman. She'd have done what Ethan did last night. Brought you in, fed you, kept you safe. I'm grateful. To all of you. No need for gratitude, just doing what's right. Though I'll warn you, town's gonna talk. Word spreads fast out here. By tomorrow everyone in Silver Point will know you're here." "I know." "Clayton Hartwell's not a forgiving man. He'll come after Ethan, economically first. Maybe more if that doesn't work. I've tried to tell Mr. Blackwood that." Charlie smiled a dry twist of his mouth. "Ethan Blackwood's got a stubborn streak a mile wide. Once he decides something's right, hell itself couldn't change his mind. Sarah used to joke that's why she married him, said she needed a man too stubborn to quit on her. Turned out she was right." Grace heard the story beneath the words. Sarah dying, Ethan not quitting, staying, fighting, losing anyway. "Charlie, can I ask you something?" "Shoot." "How did she die, Sarah?" Charlie looked out the window toward the barn where Ethan and Samuel were working. "Smallpox. Came through 4 years back. Hit 3 families. Sarah was helping nurse the sick because that's who she was. Couldn't stand by and watch people suffer. She caught it. Got sick fast. Ethan rode 30 miles to fetch the doctor. By the time they got back, she was gone. Left behind a 5-year-old boy and a man who loved her more than breathing. Ethan hasn't been the same since. Part of him died with her. Samuel keeps him going. Without that boy, I think Ethan would have followed Sarah into the ground." Grace nodded slowly, understanding. "Grief was like that. It changed you into someone you didn't recognize, made the world flat and colorless, made breathing feel like work. I lost my husband 2 years ago. I understand. Then you know. That kind of loss, it either breaks you or makes you harder. Ethan got harder. But last night, bringing you here, that's the first soft thing I've seen him do in 4 years. Maybe you remind him that kindness is still possible. Maybe helping you helps him remember who he used to be." Grace looked at her bandaged wrists, thought about the rope, the cold, the darkness. Thought about the man who had cut her down and asked nothing in return. "I hope so. I hope I can repay him somehow." "You already are. House feels different with you in it. Feels lived in again. That's worth more than you know." At noon, the ranch hands came in for lunch. 5 men ranging in age from 22 to 50. They were dirty from morning work, smelling of cattle and sweat and leather. They stopped at the doorway when they saw Grace. Charlie introduced them. Tom Brennan, 35, tall and wary. Miguel Hernandez, 40, Hispanic, cautious eyes. Roy Carter, 22, the youngest, still soft around the edges. Jack Morrison, 50, quiet and steady. And Ben Hayes, 28, skeptical face. Grace stood by the stove where she'd been heating soup, aware of their scrutiny. Tom spoke first. "You're the woman from town, the one they exiled." "I am. They said you killed the Hartwell boy. They were wrong." Ben's voice came hard. "How do we know that—" Grace met his eyes directly. No pleading, no begging, just quiet strength. "You don't. You'll have to decide for yourself whether to believe me, but I'm not going to beg you to." She turned back to the stove, ladled soup into bowls, set them on the table along with bread and butter. "I made lunch. If you don't want to eat what I cooked, you're welcome to make your own." Silence. The men looked at each other, uncertain. Then Charlie walked to the table, sat down, picked up a spoon. "This soup smells a damn sight better than what we usually get. I'm eating." Roy followed, then Jack. Tom hesitated, then sat. Miguel and Ben remained standing. Miguel spoke, his accent soft. "Miss, no disrespect meant, but people in town are saying you used witchcraft, that you cursed the Hartwell boy." Grace faced him calmly. "I'm a nurse. My father was a surgeon in Boston. He taught me medicine, not magic. I tried to save William Hartwell. I failed, but I didn't kill him." "Then who did?" Grace hesitated. She could tell them, could say Dr. Brooks gave him too much mercury, that the doctor was drunk, that the whole thing was a tragic mistake. But accusing the doctor would make her sound desperate, defensive. It would sound like blame shifting. The typhoid killed him. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, people die. It's not witchcraft. It's just the sad truth of medicine. Ben still didn't sit. You expect us to believe that the doctor says your methods are unnatural. The doctor is wrong. Or you're lying. Grace felt anger rise but pushed it down. These men had a right to their suspicions. She was a stranger, an accused woman. They didn't owe her trust. Believe what you want. I'm here because Mr. Blackwood offered me shelter. I accepted. I'll work, I'll earn my keep, and I won't cause trouble. Beyond that, I can't control what you think of me. She turned away, started cleaning the dishes. Behind her, she heard chairs scraping, the men sitting, choosing for now to give her a chance. They ate in tense silence, but they ate, and when they finished, Tom spoke quietly. Soup was good, better than Charlie's. Charlie threw a biscuit at him. My soup's fine. Your soup tastes like dishwater. Shows what you know about cooking. The tension broke. The men laughed. Grace relaxed slightly. It wasn't acceptance, but it wasn't outright hostility either. It was a start. After lunch, as the men filed out, Roy lingered. He was the youngest, baby-faced, with uncertain eyes. Miss Miller. Yes. Thank you. For the soup. And the bread. It was really good. You're welcome. I know what people are saying about you, but my ma always said you can tell a lot about a person by how they cook. Mean people make mean food. Kind people make kind food. Your food's kind. Grace smiled. That's a sweet thing to say. It's true. I hope you stay. He left quickly, embarrassed by his own honesty, but Grace felt something loosen in her chest. One ally, maybe two counting Charlie. It was more than she'd had in Silver Point. In town, news of Grace Miller's presence at Blackwood Ranch spread like fire through dry grass. By mid-afternoon, half of Silver Point knew. By evening, everyone knew. Mrs. Catherine Walsh made it her personal mission to ensure the story reached every household. She went door to door, her face flushed with righteous indignation, her voice carrying through thin walls. That Blackwood man is harboring the murderess. He brought her to his ranch, gave her shelter, fed her. It's an outrage, an insult to Christian decency. What kind of example does this set for his poor motherless child? The blacksmith's wife nodded along. The shopkeeper frowned but said nothing. The banker's daughter looked troubled. The minister's wife, Rosa Martinez, said nothing but thought plenty. She remembered the night William Hartwell died. She remembered what she saw. The gossip reached Sheriff Henry Cooper by late afternoon. He sat in his office, a small room above the general store, and rubbed his tired eyes. This was going to be trouble. He could feel it. A knock at the door. Thomas Reed, his deputy, 24 years old and still idealistic, came in looking worried. Sheriff, you heard about Blackwood and the Miller woman? Yeah, I heard. Clayton's asking for you. Says he wants her arrested. On what charge? We exiled her from town. She's not in town. She's on private property outside our jurisdiction. He says she's a fugitive. She's not a fugitive. We didn't charge her with a crime. We just made her leave. Big difference. Thomas leaned against the door frame. Sheriff Clayton's not thinking straight. He wants revenge. He wants someone to pay for his son's death. If he can't get to her legally, he might try something else. Cooper looked at his deputy, saw the worry there. Thomas Reed was a good kid. His mother had been Mexican-faced prejudice all her life, died young from the stress of never belonging. Thomas knew what it meant to be blamed for things you didn't do. He sympathized with Grace Miller in ways Cooper couldn't. You think he'd try to hurt her? I think grief makes people do crazy things, and Clayton Hartwell's got the money to make crazy things happen. Cooper stood strapped on his gun belt. He didn't want to do this, didn't want to get involved, but he'd taken an oath. Even if Clayton held his mortgage, even if standing up to him meant losing everything, there were lines a man couldn't cross and still call himself a lawman. All right, let's go talk to him. Try to calm him down. Last thing this town needs is more violence. They found Clayton in his office at the Hartwell Mining Company. Big room, expensive furniture, portrait of his dead son on the wall. Clayton sat behind his desk drinking whiskey straight from the bottle. His eyes were red. His hands shook. He looked up when they entered. "Sheriff, did you arrest her?" "Mr. Hartwell, I can't arrest her. She hasn't broken any laws." "She murdered my son." "You believe that. But we have no evidence. The council exiled her because of suspicion, not proof. There's a difference." Clayton slammed his fist on the desk. The bottle jumped. "Then I'll handle it myself." "Don't do anything stupid, Clayton. You want this woman gone, fine. She's gone. She's off your land, out of your town. That should be enough." "It's not enough. She's 10 miles away living free while my son is in the ground." Cooper's voice hardened. "Your son is dead. I'm sorry, truly. But killing or hurting Grace Miller won't bring him back. It'll just make you a murderer." "I won't kill her. I'll just make sure she leaves, permanently." "How?" Clayton's smile was ugly. "Blackwood needs to sell cattle to survive. I own the only buyer in 3 counties. No buyer, no income. No income, no ranch. Simple economics. He'll kick her out when his money runs dry, or I'll buy his land when he can't make payments. Either way she goes." Thomas spoke up, voice tight with anger. "That's extortion. That's business. It's wrong. It's legal, which is more than I can say for harboring a murderer." Cooper put a hand on Thomas's arm, held him back. "Clayton, think about what you're doing. Blackwood's a good man. His boy Samuel's got no mother. They're trying to survive just like everyone else. Don't destroy them because you're hurting." "I'm not destroying anyone. I'm simply exercising my right to do business with whom I choose. If Blackwood wants to play hero, let him. But heroes don't pay bills." Cooper saw there was no reasoning with him. Grief and rage had burned away everything else. Clayton Hartwell was beyond reach. "Just don't do anything we'll all regret." "The only thing I regret, Sheriff, is not acting sooner. That woman should have been run out of town the day my son died. Now get out. I have business to attend to." They left. Outside in the cold December air, Thomas turned to Cooper. "We have to warn Blackwood." "I know." "When?" "Now. Let's ride." But before they could mount their horses, a figure emerged from the shadows of the alley beside the mining company. Eleanor Hartwell, Clayton's wife, wrapped in a heavy cloak. "Sheriff, wait." Cooper turned. Eleanor Hartwell was 52 years old, once beautiful, now worn down by grief and guilt. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Mrs. Hartwell, I heard what my husband said about going after Mr. Blackwood. You have to stop him." "I'm trying, but he's not listening." Eleanor's voice dropped to a whisper. "That's because he can't face the truth. That William's death wasn't murder. It was mistake, Doctor. Brooks gave him too much mercury. I saw it happen. I tried to tell Clayton, but he won't hear it. He needs someone to blame, or he'll go mad." Cooper and Thomas exchanged looks. "You witnessed this?" "Yes. The night William died. Dr. Brooks was drunk. His hands were shaking. When he poured the medicine, I saw the amount. It was too much. Way too much. Miss Miller tried to warn him. He ignored her. She didn't kill my son, Sheriff. The doctor did. By accident, but still." "Why didn't you say this at the council meeting?" Eleanor's face crumpled. "Because I'm a coward. Because Clayton needed someone to hate, and it was easier to let him hate her than to make him face the truth about his friend. I've been living with that guilt every day since. I can't anymore. If my husband destroys Mr. Blackwood over this, I'll speak up. I'll tell everyone what really happened, even if it means losing Clayton." Cooper nodded slowly. "Thank you for telling us. But be careful. If your husband finds out you spoke to us, I don't care anymore. I'm tired of lying. I'm tired of watching innocent people suffer. Just please protect that woman. She doesn't deserve what's being done to her." Eleanor disappeared back into the shadows. Cooper and Thomas stood in silence for a moment. "We need to ride to Blackwood Ranch. Now." They mounted and rode hard through the gathering darkness. At the ranch, evening chores were finishing. Grace had spent the afternoon doing small tasks, mending shirts, patching Samuel's socks, organizing the pantry, making dinner. Simple things, but they made her feel useful, made her feel human again. She'd found Sarah's sewing kit in a chest in the corner of the living room. Good needles, strong thread, a silver thimble worn smooth with use. Grace felt like she was intruding on something private, but the work needed doing and the tools were there. Samuel found her in the fading light, bent over his torn shirt, her needle flashing. "Miss Grace?" She looked up. "Yes, you're fixing my shirt. It had a tear. I hope that's all right." Samuel sat beside her watching her work. "Mama used to do that. Fix my clothes when they tore." Grace set down the needle. "I'm not trying to replace her, Samuel. I know I can't." "I know, but it's nice, having someone who cares if my shirt has holes." "Of course I care. You've been nothing but kind to me. This is the least I can do." They sat in comfortable silence while Grace finished the mend. The stitches were neat, professional. Sarah's needles were well made, easy to work with. "Miss Grace, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Did you love your husband?" Grace set down the shirt, thinking. "I did, very much." "What was he like?" "Harrison was kind, strong. He worked hard. He used to sing while he worked, even when the work was hard. Terrible voice, but he didn't care. He said singing made the day go faster." "What happened to him?" "He got hurt in the mine, an accident. His back was broken. He lived 2 more years, but he was in pain the whole time. When he finally died, part of me was relieved. Not because I didn't love him, but because he wasn't suffering anymore." Samuel nodded, understanding. "That's how I felt when Mama died. Sad she was gone, but glad she wasn't hurting." "That's natural. It means you loved her." "Papa doesn't talk about her much. Is that bad?" "No. Everyone grieves differently. Some people need to talk. Some people need silence. Your papa loved your mama very much. I can see it in the way he talks about her, how he keeps things the way she left them, how he sleeps in the barn because the bedroom hurts too much." "Do you think Mama would like you?" Grace felt tears sting her eyes. "I hope so, Samuel. I really hope so. I think she would. You're nice. And you fix things." Mama liked people who fixed things instead of just complaining about them being broken. The door opened. Ethan came in, followed by Charlie. Both men looked tired, covered in the honest dirt of a day's work. Ethan stopped when he saw Grace and Samuel together, her hands busy with needle and thread, his son leaning close, comfortable. For the first time in 4 years, the house felt like a home. Then hoofbeats sounded outside. Fast. Urgent. Charlie moved to the window. "Riders coming. 2 of them." Ethan's hand went to the rifle by the door. In the wilderness, unexpected visitors after dark usually meant trouble. But when the riders came into the light of the porch lamp, Ethan recognized them. Sheriff Cooper and Deputy Reed. Ethan stepped outside, closing the door behind him to keep the cold out and Grace safe inside. "Sheriff, what brings you out here after dark?" Cooper dismounted, his face grim. "Ethan, we need to talk. It's about the Miller woman. Clayton knows she's here, and he's planning something." Inside the house, through the window, Grace watched the 3 men talking. She couldn't hear the words, but she could see the tension in their bodies, the sharp gestures, the serious faces. She knew. This peace, this brief moment of safety, was about to end. Trouble was coming, and this time it wouldn't be as simple as exile or rope or cold. This time Clayton Hartwell would use the one weapon that truly destroyed men. He would take away Ethan Blackwood's ability to survive. Sheriff Cooper's words cut through the cold December night like a knife through flesh. "Clayton's going to destroy you, Ethan. Economically. He's already contacted every cattle buyer within 3 counties. Told them not to do business with you. If you can't sell your herd next month, you can't make your payments. If you can't make payments, you lose the ranch." Ethan stood on his porch, the light from the house behind him casting his shadow long across the snow. His face showed nothing. Years of hard living had taught him to keep emotion buried deep. "Let him try." Thomas Reed, the young deputy, stepped forward. His face was earnest, worried. "Mr. Blackwood, you don't understand. Clayton owns the bank. He holds mortgages on half the businesses in Silver Point. He can make you untouchable. No one will trade with you. No one will buy from you. He'll strangle you financially until you have no choice but to send Miss Miller away. Then I'll find buyers outside his reach. Colorado has more than 3 counties. Cooper shook his head. Not in winter, not with snow blocking the passes. By the time spring comes and the trails open, you'll be 3 months behind on payments. The bank will foreclose. Clayton will buy your land at auction. You'll lose everything your wife helped you build. The mention of Sarah hit Ethan like a fist to the gut. Cooper saw it press the advantage. Think about Samuel. Think about what Sarah would want. She'd want her son to have a home, to have security. Is this woman worth losing all of that? Ethan's voice came quiet, dangerous. Sheriff, you rode all the way out here to tell me to abandon someone in need because a rich man wants revenge. Is that the kind of law you enforce? I'm trying to help you. You're trying to make things easy for yourself. Easy for Clayton. Easy for everyone except the woman who did nothing wrong. Well, I'm sorry, but easy isn't always right. Grace Miller stays. If that costs me the ranch, then it costs me the ranch. But I'll sleep at night knowing I stood for something. Thomas spoke softly. There's more, Mr. Blackwood. Mrs. Hartwell Clayton's wife, she told us something. She witnessed what really happened the night William died. Dr. Brooks gave him too much mercury. He was drunk. Miss Miller tried to warn him. The doctor ignored her. It wasn't witchcraft. It was medical error. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then why did the council exile her? Because Dr. Brooks is Clayton's friend. Because admitting the truth would mean admitting the doctor killed William through negligence. Easier to blame the outsider. The widow. The woman with no powerful friends. That's not justice. That's cowardice. Cooper's face reddened. Maybe. But it's reality. And reality is Clayton has the power and you don't. He's already moving. By tomorrow morning you won't be able to buy supplies in Silver Point. The general store, the feed store, the blacksmith, they'll all refuse to serve you. He's making an example of you, showing everyone what happens when you cross him. Ethan looked through the window at Grace sitting with Samuel mending his clothes by lamplight. She looked peaceful, safe. For the first time in weeks, she looked like a woman instead of a hunted animal. He turned back to the sheriff. Thank you for the warning, but my decision stands. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a family to get back to. A family? Cooper's eyebrows rose. Ethan, she's been here one day. And in one day my house has felt more like a home than it has in 4 years. That means something. Good night, Sheriff. Ethan went inside, closed the door. Through the window, Cooper and Thomas saw him walk to Grace, say something quiet. Saw her face go pale. Saw Samuel look up confused. Saw 3 people about to face a storm with nothing but each other to hold on to. Thomas turned to Cooper. We should help them. How we're lawmen. Clayton hasn't broken any laws. Refusing to do business isn't illegal. It's just cruel. Then we find another way. We talk to people. We tell them the truth about what happened to William. And who will believe us over Clayton Hartwell? Thomas's voice hardened with anger. Someone has to stand up to him. Someone has to say enough. If not us, then who? Cooper looked at his young deputy, saw the fire there remembered when he'd been that idealistic, before mortgages and families and fear had beaten it out of him. You're a good kid, Thomas, but you're young. You don't understand how the world works yet. Power protects power. Money protects money. People like us, we don't change that. We just survive it. Is that what you tell yourself at night, that you're just surviving? Cooper's face went hard. Watch your tone, deputy. Or what you'll fire me. Go ahead. Better to lose my badge than lose my integrity. Thomas mounted his horse and rode away into the darkness. Cooper stood alone in the cold, feeling every one of his 40 years. The boy was right. Cooper knew it. But knowing and doing are different countries separated by an ocean of fear. He mounted slowly and rode back to Silver Point, back to his small house where his wife waited, back to the safety of compromise and cowardice. Inside the Blackwood ranch house, Ethan told Grace everything. She listened in silence, her face growing paler with each word. When he finished, she stood. I'll leave tonight." "No. Mr. Blackwood, I can't let you lose your ranch because of me." "You're not making me lose anything. Clayton Hartwell is. There's a difference. But if I go—" "If you go, then he wins. Then every bully with money and power learns that all they have to do is threaten good people, and good people will fold. I won't teach my son that lesson. I won't teach him that doing right only matters when it's convenient." Samuel, who had been sitting very still, spoke up. "Miss Grace Papa's right. You have to stay. If you leave, the bad people win. Mama used to say that good people have to stick together because bad people always do." Grace looked at this serious-faced boy, this child who had lost his mother and was trying so hard to be brave. She looked at Ethan standing firm despite everything he had to lose. She felt something crack open in her chest, something that had been frozen since Harrison died. These people, these strangers, were willing to sacrifice everything for her, for justice, for what was right. She couldn't let them do it alone. "Then I work. I work harder than I've ever worked. I earn my keep 100 times over. If we're going to fight this, we fight together." Ethan nodded once decision made. Together. The next morning Grace woke before dawn. She'd slept in the guest room, the bed soft and warm, the first real rest she'd had in weeks. But she couldn't afford rest now. If she was going to stay, she had to prove her worth, had to make herself indispensable. She dressed quickly, went downstairs, built up the fire, started coffee. The house was cold, the December wind howling outside. She found the pantry, started pulling ingredients: flour, eggs, bacon, potatoes. She could make a real breakfast, the kind that stuck to your ribs and carried you through a hard day's work. She was elbow deep in biscuit dough when Charlie came in from the bunkhouse. "Miss Miller, you're up early. Mr. Blackwood's fighting for me. Least I can do is feed him properly." Charlie smiled a slow spread of approval across his weathered face. "You'll do, ma'am. You'll do just fine." By the time Ethan and Samuel came down, the kitchen smelled like heaven. Bacon, sizzling biscuits, baking coffee strong and hot. The table was set properly, napkins folded, everything in its place. Samuel's eyes went wide. "Miss Grace, did you make all this?" "I did. Sit, eat before it gets cold." They ate together, the three of them, plus Charlie and the 5 ranch hands who'd been drawn in by the smell. The men were quiet at first, uncertain, but the food was too good to resist. Fluffy biscuits with real butter. Bacon cooked perfect. Eggs scrambled with cheese and herbs. Fried potatoes, crispy on the outside, soft inside. Roy, the youngest hand, spoke around a mouthful of biscuit. "Miss Grace, this is the best breakfast I've had since my mama died." "Thank you, Roy. There's plenty more." Tom Brennan, the wary one, was on his 3rd biscuit. "Where'd you learn to cook like this?" "My mother taught me. She said a woman who can't cook is a woman who can't keep her family strong. Food is medicine. Food is love. Food is how you show people they matter." Miguel nodded slowly. "My mother used to say the same thing, in Spanish but same meaning." The meal continued in warmer silence. Grace watched the men eat, saw their defenses lower, saw them start to see her as human, as someone who cared, as someone who belonged. After breakfast, as the men prepared for the day's work, Ethan pulled Grace aside. "You didn't have to do all this." "Yes, I did. These men are risking their jobs, maybe their reputations, by staying here. They need to know I'm worth it." "You are worth it." Grace felt heat rise to her face. "You barely know me. I know you fight. I know you don't give up. I know you stand tall even when the world's pushing you down. That's enough." They stood close, too close, the space between them charged with something neither could name yet. Grace broke away first. "I should clean up. I should get to work." But neither moved for a long moment. The days fell into a rhythm. Grace woke before dawn, made breakfast, packed lunches for the men working the far pastures. She cleaned the house properly, swept the corners that had been missed for years, washed windows, organized closets. She found Sarah's old garden tools and began planning a spring planting. She mended every piece of torn clothing in the house. She taught Samuel to read better, to write more clearly, to do arithmetic beyond counting. She made the house a home again, and Ethan, watching her, felt something he thought had died with Sarah. Hope. Not hope for romance, not yet, but hope that life could be more than just survival, that a house could be warm again, that his son could have a woman's influence, a woman's kindness, a woman's touch. On the third day, Roy had an accident. He was mending fence in the far pasture when his horse spooked at a rattlesnake. The horse reared. Roy fell, his arm caught in barbed wire. The wire ripped through his coat, through his shirt, deep into muscle. Blood everywhere. Tom and Miguel brought him back to the house, Roy pale and shaking his arm, a mess of torn flesh and blood. Grace took one look and went into nurse mode. Her voice came calm, professional brooking, no argument. "Get him on the kitchen table. Charlie, boil water. Ethan, I need clean cloth whiskey and my medical bag. Samuel, go upstairs." "But now." Samuel ran. The men moved fast, lifting Roy onto the table. Grace cut away his sleeve, examined the wound. Deep but clean. No arterial bleeding. The barbed wire had missed the major vessels by inches. "Roy, look at me." His eyes were glassy with shock. "Am I dying?" "Not today, but this is going to hurt." Tom Miguel hold his shoulders. "Don't let him move." She worked fast. Cleaned the wound with whiskey, Roy screaming through gritted teeth. Examined for wire fragments, found 2 small pieces, extracted them with tweezers. Then stitches neat and tight, the kind her father had taught her. 17 stitches to close the deepest cut. Bandages soaked in herbs to prevent infection. Throughout, her hands never shook. Her voice never wavered. She was a professional, a healer, completely in control. When it was done, Roy lay back pale but conscious. "Thank you, ma'am. Keep it clean. Change the bandage twice a day. Come see me if it gets red or hot or starts to smell. Understand?" "Yes, ma'am." The men helped Roy to the bunkhouse. Ethan stayed behind, watching Grace clean blood off her hands. That was impressive. That was necessary. "Where did you learn to do that?" "My father. He was a surgeon. He trained me from the time I was 12. Said a woman should know how to save a life just as much as a man. Taught me anatomy, suturing, setting bones, delivering babies. Everything he knew." "Why didn't you become a doctor?" Grace's laugh was bitter. "Women can't go to medical school. Not in Boston, not anywhere. Best I could do was nurse, and even that people looked at me sideways. A woman with medical knowledge is suspicious, unnatural, especially out here." "It's not unnatural. It's a gift." "Tell that to Clayton Hartwell." Ethan moved closer, his voice dropping. "Grace, you saved Roy's arm today. Maybe his life. These men won't forget that. Neither will I." Their eyes met, held. Something passed between them, unspoken but powerful. Grace looked away, first flustered. "I should check on Roy." "Grace." She stopped. "Thank you for staying, for fighting, for being here." "Where else would I go?" But they both knew that wasn't the real answer. The real answer was that she wanted to be here, with him, with Samuel, with this ranch and these people and this life that was starting to feel like it could be hers. In Silver Point, Clayton Hartwell's economic pressure was working. The general store refused to sell to Ethan. The feed store turned him away. The blacksmith said his forge was too busy. Every business that depended on Clayton's money or goodwill had cut Ethan off. But Ethan was resourceful. He rode 30 miles to a small trading post run by an old friend from his Army days, bought supplies there, paid more but got what he needed. He sent Charlie to negotiate with a cattle buyer in Colorado Springs, bypassing Clayton's network entirely. It would cost more. It would take longer. But it was possible. Clayton, learning this, grew more desperate. His grief had curdled into obsession. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The portrait of William hung in his office, and Clayton spent hours staring at it, talking to it, apologizing to a son who couldn't hear. Eleanor watched her husband crumble. She'd loved Clayton once back when he was younger, softer before money and power had hardened him. Now she barely recognized the man he'd become. She tried once more. "Clayton, this has to stop." He didn't look at her. "What has to stop?" "This vendetta against Mr. Blackwood, against that poor woman. It's destroying you." "She destroyed me first. She took my son." "No. Typhoid took William. Dr. Brooks' mistake took William. She tried to help. Clayton's head snapped around. His eyes were wild. "Don't you dare defend her." "I'm not defending anyone. I'm telling you the truth. The truth you refuse to see because it's easier to hate her than to accept that William's death was senseless, that there's no one to punish. That grief is just grief and anger won't bring him back. Get out. Clayton, get out of my office before I say something we'll both regret." Eleanor left, but she didn't go home. She went to the church, found Reverend Samuel Parker in his small office writing Sunday's sermon. "Reverend, I need to confess something." Parker looked up, saw the anguish on her face. "Come in, Mrs. Hartwell. Sit." She told him everything, about the night William died, about the mercury, about Dr. Brooks shaking hands, about Grace Miller's warnings that went ignored, about her own cowardice at the council meeting, about the guilt that was eating her alive. Parker listened in silence. When she finished, he spoke quietly. "What do you want to do about this?" "I want to tell the truth. But if I do, Clayton will never forgive me. He'll see it as betrayal. Our marriage, what's left of it, will end. And if you don't tell the truth, then I'm complicit in the destruction of innocent people. Then I'm choosing my comfort over their lives. Then I'm the coward I've always been." Parker leaned forward. "Eleanor, I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you this. I've known you for 20 years. You're a good woman. You've made mistakes, but who hasn't? The question isn't whether you were wrong before. The question is whether you'll be right now, whether you'll find the courage to speak when it matters most. What if it costs me everything? Then you'll join a long line of people who did the right thing and paid the price. But you'll be able to look yourself in the mirror, and sometimes that's all we have." Eleanor left the church with a decision made. She would speak. She would tell the truth. But first, she needed proof, something more than her word against her husband's. She went to Dr. Brooks' office. She found him drunk. Again. Always. He sat behind his desk with a bottle of whiskey, his hands shaking, his eyes red. "Dr. Brooks." He looked up, saw her flinched. "Mrs. Hartwell, I'm not seeing patients today. I'm not here as a patient. I'm here for the truth. I don't know what you killed my son. You gave him too much mercury. Your hands were shaking. You were drunk. Grace Miller tried to warn you, and you ignored her." Brooks's face went gray. "That's not—" "Don't lie to me. I was there. I saw it happen, and I've kept silent because I was afraid of what Clayton would do. But I can't be silent anymore. Too many people are suffering because of our lies." Brooks stood unsteadily. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to tell the truth. Come to the sheriff, make a statement, admit what happened, clear Miss Miller's name. If I do that, I'll lose my license. I'll lose everything." "You should lose your license. You're a danger to your patients. You operate while intoxicated. You make mistakes that kill people. If you had any integrity left, you'd turn yourself in." Brooks sank back into his chair. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "I killed him. I killed that boy. Every night I see his face. Every night I hear him calling for his mother. I can't sleep, can't eat, can't live with what I did." "Then make it right, the only way you can. It's too late for making things right. It's never too late, but you have to choose. You have to be brave enough to face what you've done." Brooks looked at her with hollow eyes. "I don't have that kind of bravery." "Then find it, before someone else pays for your mistake." Eleanor left him there, drowning in whiskey and guilt. That night, Dr. Samuel Brooks sat alone in his office, the bottle empty, the lamp burning low. He thought about William Hartwell dying from mercury poisoning. He thought about Grace Miller exiled for his crime. He thought about 30 years of practicing medicine, of saving lives and taking lives and never quite balancing the scales. He thought about his wife dead 5 years and wondered what she would say if she could see him now. She'd been a good woman. She'd believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. She'd deserved better than a drunk for a husband. Everyone had deserved better. Brooks pulled out a piece of paper. His hand shook, but he forced himself to write clearly. Every word a confession, every sentence a damnation. When he finished, he folded the letter, sealed it in an envelope, wrote Eleanor Hartwell's name on the front. Then he went to the cabinet where he kept his medicines, found the laudanum, poured himself a full glass. He drank it down, bitter and burning. Then he lay down on the couch in his office, closed his eyes, and waited for the same darkness he'd given to William Hartwell. Eleanor found him the next morning. She'd come early hoping to talk to him again, hoping to convince him. But when she opened the door and saw him lying still, his face peaceful in death, she knew. She found the letter on his desk, opened it with shaking hands, read the truth written in a dying man's hand. She took the letter to Sheriff Cooper, demanded he read it aloud in front of witnesses. Cooper Thomas Reed, Mayor Peterson, and 3 town council members gathered in the sheriff's office. Cooper read, his voice shaking. "To whom it may concern. My name is Dr. Samuel Brooks. I am writing this because I can no longer live with what I have done. On the night of December 1st, 1882, I treated William Hartwell for typhoid fever. I was intoxicated. I have been intoxicated most days for the past 5 years since my wife passed. In my impaired state, I administered 25 grains of mercury to young Mr. Hartwell. The correct therapeutic dose is 10 grains. By the time I realized my error, it was too late. The boy died not from disease, but from mercury poisoning, from my hand, from my negligence." When Clayton Hartwell demanded to know why his son died while another boy lived, I blamed Grace Miller. I called her a witch. I suggested she had used unnatural means. I did this to save my own reputation and livelihood. In doing so, I condemned an innocent woman to death. I can no longer bear this guilt. By the time this letter is read, I will have taken my own life. It is less than I deserve. To Miss Miller I offer my deepest apologies, though I know they mean nothing. To the Hartwell family I offer the truth. Your son died because of me, because I was too weak and too proud to admit I had become a danger to my patients. May God have mercy on my soul, for I have none for myself. Dr. Samuel Brooks. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Damning. Mayor Peterson spoke first. "We need to inform Clayton." "We need to clear Miss Miller's name first," Thomas said firmly. "The deputy's right." This was Eleanor, her voice strong despite her tears. "Grace Miller is innocent. The council needs to make a public statement. Today, now, before anyone else suffers." Cooper looked at the letter, then at Eleanor. "Mrs. Hartwell, your husband isn't going to take this well. My husband is going to have to face reality. His friend killed our son through negligence, then blamed an innocent woman. I won't let him continue this vendetta. Not anymore." Within the hour, word had spread through Silver Point like fire. Dr. Brooks dead. A confession letter. Grace Miller innocent. The town that had condemned her so quickly now faced its own guilt. Mrs. Catherine Walsh, the church lady who'd led the persecution, found herself suddenly alone. The women who'd followed her lead now avoided her eyes. The men who'd nodded along with her accusations now pretended they'd doubted all along. Thomas Reed rode to Blackwood Ranch that afternoon. He found Grace in the kitchen kneading bread dough. She stood when she saw him, fear crossing her face. "Deputy!" "Miss Miller, I come with news." Ethan emerged from the barn, Samuel at his side. The ranch hands gathered, sensing something important. Thomas dismounted, pulled out a copy of the letter. "Dr. Brooks is dead. He took his own life last night, but before he died he wrote a confession. He admitted to giving William Hartwell too much mercury. He admitted you tried to warn him. He admitted lying to protect himself. He cleared your name, Miss Miller, completely." Grace's legs gave out. She sat hard on the frozen ground. Ethan was there instantly, kneeling beside her. "It's over," Thomas continued. "The council will make a public statement tomorrow. You're free to return to Silver Point if you wish. The exile is lifted. Your name is cleared." Grace looked up at Ethan. His face showed relief, but also something else, something that looked like loss. "You can go home," he said quietly. "I don't have a home in Silver Point. You'll be welcomed now. The town owes you an apology." Grace stood brushing snow from her skirt. She looked at Thomas. "Thank you for bringing me this news. Tell the council I accept their apology, but tell them also that I won't be returning to Silver Point." "But I have a home here, if Mr. Blackwood will still have me." Ethan's face transformed. Joy, relief, something deeper. "Grace Miller, you're welcome here as long as you want to stay." "Then I'm staying." Thomas smiled, tipped his hat, and rode away. When he was gone, Samuel let out a whoop of joy and hugged Grace tight. Charlie and the ranch hands cheered, and Ethan, standing close, looked at Grace with eyes that said everything words couldn't. That night, after Samuel was asleep, Grace and Ethan sat on the porch. The December air was cold, but they were wrapped in blankets watching stars. "You really want to stay?" Ethan asked. "I really do." "Why?" "You could go anywhere now. Back to Boston. Start fresh. No one knows about the accusation there." Grace looked at him in the starlight. "Because in 3 weeks this place has felt more like home than anywhere I've lived in 10 years. Because Samuel needs someone. Because this ranch needs a woman's touch. Because you, Ethan Blackwood, are the first truly good man I've met since my father died. And because I want to see what happens next, if we face it together." Ethan reached out, took her hand. She didn't pull away. "I'm not an easy man, Grace. I'm carrying a lot of weight, a lot of guilt from things I did in the war, a lot of grief from losing Sarah. I don't know if I can be what you need. I'm not looking for easy. I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for honest, for real, for someone who does right even when it costs everything. That's you. That's all I need." They sat in silence, hands clasped, something new and fragile growing between them. Inside, Samuel watched from his window, smiling. He knew what was happening, even if the adults didn't quite yet. In Silver Point, Clayton Hartwell sat in his office, Dr. Brooks' confession letter on his desk. Eleanor had brought it to him, had read it aloud, had stood before him and told him the truth he'd refused to see, that William had died from a mistake, that there was no villain, that his rage had nearly destroyed innocent people. Clayton wept for the first time since his son died, not the angry tears of before, but deep, wrenching sobs, grief finally without the armor of rage. Eleanor held him. After all the pain, all the lies, all the damage, she held him, because he was still her husband, because they'd lost their son together, because forgiveness was the only path forward. "I'm sorry," Clayton whispered. "I'm so sorry." "I know. We both are." The next week, Clayton Hartwell made a public apology. He stood before the town council, before the people of Silver Point, and admitted his mistakes. He lifted the economic pressure on Ethan Blackwood. He personally paid for a memorial service for Dr. Brooks despite everything. And he wrote a letter to Grace Miller apologizing for the pain he'd caused. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't expect it. He simply acknowledged his wrong. Grace read the letter sitting on Ethan's porch, Samuel beside her. When she finished, she folded it carefully. "What will you do?" Samuel asked. "I'll write back. Tell him I forgive him, because holding on to anger would only hurt me, not him. That's what Mama would do. Your Mama sounds like she was a wise woman." "She was. But you're pretty wise too, Miss Grace." Grace kissed the top of his head. "Thank you, Samuel. That means more than you know." Spring came slowly to Wyoming territory. The snow melted. The creeks ran full. The grass turned green again. And at Blackwood Ranch, something else bloomed. Grace and Ethan, working side by side through the long winter, had fallen in love. Not the fast, passionate love of young people, but the slow, steady love of two people who had been broken and were learning to be whole again. On a warm April morning, with wildflowers covering the meadow and Samuel's laughter ringing through the air, Ethan asked Grace to marry him. They were in the garden planting vegetables. Grace's hands were dirty, her hair coming loose from its pins. She looked up startled. "Marry you. If you'll have me. I know I'm not much, just a rancher with a son and a lot of baggage. But I love you, Grace Miller. I think I started loving you the moment I saw you standing in that courtroom with your head held high, and I want to spend the rest of my life showing you what real love looks like." Grace stood, brushed the dirt from her hands, and cupped his face. "Ethan Blackwood, you're everything. And yes, I'll marry you." They kissed then in the spring sunshine, with Samuel cheering from the porch and Charlie wiping tears from his weathered face. The wedding was small, held at the ranch with Reverend Parker officiating. The ranch hands stood as witnesses. Thomas Reed came from Silver Point, bringing Mrs. Martinez and a few others who'd had the courage to doubt the accusations from the beginning. Even Eleanor Hartwell came bringing a gift, a quilt she'd made herself, stitched with hope and apology. Grace wore a simple blue dress. Ethan wore his Sunday suit. Samuel stood between them, holding both their hands, beaming with pride. As they said their vows, Grace thought about how far she'd come. From a widow accused of murder, tied to a tree, and left for death, to a woman beloved, a woman with a family, a woman with a home. Ethan thought about Sarah, about how she'd made him promise to live, to be brave, to do right. And he knew she'd be proud. Proud that he'd saved Grace. Proud that he'd fought for justice. Proud that he'd opened his heart again. When the ceremony ended and they kissed, as husband and wife, the ranch hands cheered. Samuel threw his arms around both of them, creating a tangle of joy and love and new beginnings. The years passed. Grace and Ethan worked the ranch side by side, building it into something greater than either could have managed alone. Samuel grew tall and strong, carrying both his mother's kindness and his father's integrity. They had more children. 2 daughters who looked like Grace and had Ethan's stubbornness. The house was full of noise and laughter and love. Grace never went back to Silver Point except when medical emergencies required her help. And when she did, people greeted her with respect, with apology in their eyes, with gratitude for her forgiveness. Clayton Hartwell died 5 years later, grief having aged him beyond his years. But before he died, he made peace with Grace, apologized again, told her that her forgiveness had been the one thing that let him breathe again. Eleanor lived another 20 years, spending them in service. She worked with the poor, the sick, the outcast, trying to make up for the harm she'd allowed, trying to be brave when it mattered. And on warm summer evenings, Grace and Ethan would sit on their porch watching their children play in the meadow, watching the sun set over mountains that had once seemed so hostile. "Do you ever regret it?" Ethan would ask. "Staying here, giving up the chance to start somewhere new?" And Grace would take his hand, calloused from work, scarred from life, and squeeze tight. "Not for a single moment. This is where I was meant to be, with you, with our children, with this life we built from nothing but faith and stubbornness and love. Even after everything you went through, especially because of everything I went through, it made me strong enough to recognize good when I found it. It made me brave enough to fight for it. It made me wise enough to know that home isn't a place. It's people. And you, Ethan Blackwood, you and Samuel and this life, you're my home, forever." They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell and stars emerged. Inside, children laughed. The fire crackled. Dinner smelled of home and hope and everything worth living for. Grace Miller. Blackwood, once accused, once abandoned, once left for death on a frozen winter night, had found something precious. Not just survival, not just vindication, but true belonging, true love, true justice. And in the end, that was worth more than any easy path could have offered. The widow had proven her worth, not through vindication alone, but through perseverance, through kindness when others showed cruelty, through courage when others showed cowardice, through love when the world offered only hate. And on a ranch in Wyoming Territory, under stars that shone bright and cold and eternal, 2 broken people had become whole. A family had been forged from tragedy, and a woman who'd been called witch had become exactly what she'd always been: a healer, a fighter, a mother, a wife. Grace.